Today, I speak with Pulitzer Prize winner and best-selling author and a good friend, Chris Hedges. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Lee.
Over the past few weeks, we've seen protests across the country in a way we hadn't, I think, in a while, at least many months or a year or so. And, many people are focusing against, it's focused against Trump and Musk. And many of the protesters seem to have the message, get rid of Trump, problem solved. Why is that the wrong approach?
Well, because as I have long said, Trump is the symptom. He's not the disease. The problem is the capture of economic and political power by corporations and oligarchs. And I really looked at this last presidential election as a battle between the corporatists who supported the Democrats and the oligarchs. And within the system of capitalism, oligarchs and corporations want different things. Corporatists want stability. They want trade deals that are set up in perpetuity because they make things, not in our country, unless it's weapons, but they make cars, and GM makes its cars in Monterrey, Mexico. Apple works in Foxconn sweatshops in China, and they make big investments. It takes time for them to get a return on those investments. So it's different. Oligarchs, think of private equity firms as oligarchic. They don't actually, not only do they not make anything, they destroy things. And that's what, like KKR, for instance. KKR, one of the biggest private equity firms in the country, which just bought my publisher, Simon & Schuster. What do? They buy up, usually through debt. They don't actually put much of their own money in it. But the famous KKR story is they bought up a national nursing home chain. Gretchen Morgeson wrote about this in her book. And then they took all the physical property of the nursing home chain and spun it off into a separate company. And then they charged the administrators of these nursing homes rent at like $40,000 a month, raked it in, and the nursing home chain went bankrupt. And of course, services within the chain deteriorated. That's what private equity firms do. There's a term for it, a business term. It's called harvesting. So oligarchs want chaos. They want structures to break down, because think of it as a toll booth. They set up toll booths for you to get essential services, which is what our for-profit, disastrous for-profit healthcare system is about. None of us choose to get sick, of course. They buy up utilities in distressed communities, the parking authority, the sewer system, the electrical system, and they jack the rates up. They don't invest in the infrastructure. And that's what we're seeing. So when you hear them talk about abolishing the Department of Education, they're talking about abolishing the post office. That's because they want to replace it with something that's substandard, but that we're forced to use, or we need to use, and then they can extract more money from us. That's what oligarchs do. But they're very destructive. And it's interesting, in Karl Marx, he talks about the late stage of capitalism. And he said that when these predatory institutions are unregulated and unleashed, as our corporate power has been, then what they essentially turn on the very entity or the institutions that sustain the capitalist system and cannibalize it. And I think that's probably a good description of what we're watching with the Trump administration. So the problem is, look, anybody who thinks Biden and the Democrats are a solution, Wall Street bankers, Jamie Dimon and others, were the ones who formulated Kamala Harris's economic policy. I mean, that was the most clueless, tone-deaf, checked-out campaign. It was celebrity-driven, vapid, issueless, and it just shows you how bankrupt the Democratic Party has become. And I think many people, what's interesting about the election of Trump is that it's not just the white working class that, out of desperation, I would argue, yes, there is that core of, hardcore Christian Zionists. I call them Christian fascists, but obviously it was much broader than that. But we destroyed the working class, we betrayed the working class, and that's why the black and the brown working class, in disproportionate numbers compared to the last election, voted for Trump. So if we don't right that economic inequality, we're going to be frog marched into a kind of Christian fascism, and it's coming far faster than even I would have thought.
Yeah, you essentially predicted it in your books, Death of the Liberal Class, Empire of Illusion, and many of your other writings. Death of the Liberal Class addresses the moral bankruptcy of neoliberalism and how it leads to fascism. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, so fascism, traditionally, historically, fascism is always born of a bankrupt liberalism. I watched that in Yugoslavia, where you had a liberal center that mouthed platitudes about an open system after the death of Tito and democracy and all this kind of stuff, but in fact was a kleptocracy and ended with hyperinflation. And then you vomited up these figures like Radovan Karadzic and Franjo Tudjman, who was a fascist. I mean, they adopted the old fascist symbols in Croatia of the Ustasha movement, the Nazi allies. That was also true in Weimar, and that's what we're seeing here. And people turn. I mean, a lot of the great writers on fascism, Fritz Stern, Hannah Arendt, and others, say that the repugnance towards this bankrupt, hollowed out liberalism, which is just about virtue signaling. That's what woke, chastising, admonishing, that sense of moral superiority, all that kind of stuff. Then they actually turn on liberal democratic values. And that's, of course, what we're also seeing. And that's what happened in Weimar. So it's a prerequisite. And what you had is a liberal class that was bought off, in essence. I mean, first you had Cold War liberalism, which was used to decimate the radical movements that actually saved us from fascism in the 1930s. We write the Communist Party out of history, but they were very fundamental in terms of the sit-down strikes in 36 and the auto plants, and the radical unions, and it frightened the oligarchs like Franklin Delano Roosevelt to respond. The government with the collapse of capitalism in the 30s was providing employment for 12 million Americans. And all of these militant unions pushed them. The 8-hour workday, Social Security, all this kind of stuff didn't come from because, rich people like us.
Right.
It came because they were scared. And, I was just out in Seattle with Shama Sawant and her worker strike back movement because she gets it. That's what we have to do. The only weapon we have is collective. I mean, we have the numbers and we have to use them. We can use them. The strike is the most effective weapon. We can shut the machinery down. But look, Biden, Trump, they're different, but both of them are the enemy. And, one of the things about Trump is like with Gaza, and as you know, I spent a lot of time in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
He says, at least he's honest. I mean, Biden knew, and the Democrats and Blinken, they knew that the Zionist state was going to turn it into a bomb Gaza moonscape and try and push everybody over into the Egyptian Sinai, or it depopulate. Trump revels in it.
You're getting into my next question, which was going to be: is there any benefit to be seen in the fact that Trump's narcissism and ignorance have made it so that he unintentionally is taking off the mask of the empire? And I was thinking of the example of Gaza. He says in the Oval Office, "We're going to ethnically cleanse Gaza." Yeah. He has billionaires are literally running things, as opposed to having this screen between the billionaires and the policy of government. Now they're just in the Oval Office. The administration's racism has been on full display with Elon Musk sig heiling during the inauguration. Right. So has the truth of the U.S. empire been revealed?
Yeah. I mean, and that's why they didn't want Trump. It's not because they don't want to do it. It's because they didn't have that decorum. They love people like Obama, who give it a kind of a veneer of civility and rule of law. And that's why the corporatists didn't want Trump. The oligarchs love Trump because oligarchs just want to throw a hand grenade into everything, because the more things break down, the more money they make. Whether it's private security, whatever it is, everything becomes privatized. They want to privatize education, either through charter schools or Christian schools, or fleecing you through online education services. That's why the corporatists didn't like him. I mean, he's ruptured relations with all of our traditional allies in Europe. Yeah, I mean, he's
putting tariffs on the EU.
Yeah, there you go. So in
Yeah.
Canada, and wants to make Canada our 51st state. I'm married to a Canadian. I'm married to a Canadian who couldn't tell the difference between a hockey puck and a hockey stick, but was thrilled when the Canadian team beat the nationalism. You can't escape it, even in.
No, no, you can't. Do you think there's some signs that the domination of the two-party system is collapsing? I mean, it's tough to say what they even stand for, even hypothetically, even ostensibly. Like Trump is the one seemingly bringing peace in Ukraine, so you can't claim the Democrats are anti-war. The Democrats are wholeheartedly endorsing anything the CIA or FBI does. They've become the party of the federal law enforcement. Kamala Harris was seemingly trying to run to the right of Trump on immigration. Like, do these parties mean anything anymore?
No, I mean, I mean, of course, you're right on all that. I mean, the Democratic Party became far more fervently, ironically, than the Republican Party, the war party. And let's
Yeah.
not forget that it also is the party of censorship. They're the ones who went after people like you and me, who
Mhm.
are critics of the Democratic Party, because they don't have an answer. So it's, they can't really respond. So they want to shut us down. Not that, we're much of a threat, but enough of a threat that they went after us. I mean, we were both on RT and all of our shows got, disappeared on YouTube. So, which kind of really pissed me off because I didn't do a show on Russia. I mean, one of the shows I loved most was the 100th anniversary of the publication of Ulysses with the great James Joyce scholar out of Trinity College Dublin. That got disappeared. I mean, it's just, ridiculous. But what they didn't want, and we know that from the Clapper's National Intelligence Report, I think it was 2017, when they went after RT, they didn't go after RT for Russian propaganda. I'm talking about RT America. It's because, I mean, they wrote it out. It's all there in black and white. They give voice to anti-fracking activists, Black Lives Matters activists, third-party candidates, all the stuff that the Democratic Party saw as a threat. No, the fusion of or the capture of the parties by big money meant that you just created one established ruling class. And with the rise of Trump, it became cultish, obviously, and the establishment Republicans migrated to the Democratic Party, where they were completely embraced because there's no difference. A Crystal, I know,
Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney. I mean, Harris was running around bragging about the fact that she was endorsed by Dick Cheney,
Yeah.
who should be in prison, and who left office with a 13% approval rating, which just shows you how. So the establishment party has now just been folded into Clinton just transformed the Democratic Party into the Republican Party, in essence. And then the Republican Party just spun off into Never Never Land, and you got Trump. So you have a collapsing, bankrupt, let's call it ruling class, which is a fusion of both leading Republicans, establishment Republicans, and establishment Democrats, which nobody wants anymore. But yeah, I mean, I know from writing a book on the Christian right, American fascists, the Christian right, and the war on America. I was trying to reach out to them. I know from that book that what they want, and people should. It's a slog, and I can't say I'm that far into it, but people need to read Project 2025. I mean, it's all there. It's all in black and white. What the kind of state that they are attempting to build, and it is at best authoritarian and probably fascist.
Yeah, I think we can look to Argentina for the operation manual. So I'll wrap up with this. You and I have had as you kind of tangentially mentioned, you and I have had the honor of being banned or pushed out or sanctioned into oblivion from multiple outlets. Some of yours more prestigious than mine. But on top of being pushed out or shadow banned, some journalists are, regularly questioned by federal agents. Several gray zone writers have been. And in the UK, Richard Medhurst is facing years in prison for his journalism on Israel's genocide. Where would you put the state of media these days, even as just compared to 15 years ago?
It's very ominous and very scary. Richard's a friend of mine. I did an event with him in Blackburn when Craig Murray was running for Parliament. Right. And I'm actually in close contact with Richard. But you're right, he's not alone. Max Blumenthal was stopped at the airport. I've been stopped at I was held for 2 hours with a valid U.S. passport at the Newark airport.
Did they question you? Or?
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't question me. They put me in a room with a bunch of people who looked like they had forged visas and kept me there for a while. And then one of the supervisors came in and said to someone behind the computer, He's on a watch. Tell him he can go. And that's all I know. With Max, they questioned him.
Yeah.
But when I go through, often, as soon as my profile comes up, the demeanor of the Homeland Security agent changes. They can get very caustic. Obviously, there's something on there that flags me.
Right.
I don't know what it is, Harvard graduate or something. But they get very surly.
Or your lawsuit against Obama, maybe.
Well, yeah, it's probably something actually more serious. So, and I mean, it was a couple of years ago. Somebody goes, I was coming back from Canada. He goes, why are you coming back from? He says, where do you usually come back from in Canada? What city? And I said, Toronto. Usually I come back from Toronto. And he goes, no, you don't. I have it right here. It's usually Montreal, which is wrong. It sounds like they don't even have the right. They're not even doing a very good job of following me around. It's terrifying. And, I watched it in Yugoslavia. I watched the same process. So they'll go after the legacy media first because, that's what they want to destroy. New York Times, CNN, all that. But look, we're next on the list. We're just not as powerful or as important. No, it's a very frightening time. How far will they go? I don't know. I mean, we all know with Israel, we know what its intent is to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza. That is clearly its intent. We don't know if they'll achieve it. And I think it's fair to say now they want to drive the Palestinians out of the West Bank. Yeah. Can they make Jordan and Egypt acquiesce? So we know the intent in terms of the genocide, and we know the intent here. The open question is how far they can go. But we know where they want to go, and it's not good.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And always love talking to you.
Thanks, Lee.